Hello, this is Knute Alger, and this is my IQT Part 3 for Teach of Quality Audits. This is for our PRM 613 class, and today is November 13th, 2022. Just a quick recap. Previously, we discussed a brief description of what quality audits are and how they play an essential part of how a company monitors its processes, products, compliance, and quality management systems. We also learned that the primary purpose of a quality audit is for determining the effectiveness of quality assurance activities. In other words, are the quality assurance activities meeting quality standards? We continued to learn of quality audits by discussing how quality audits are used for various processes, including products, processes, compliance, and quality systems. Lastly, we learned that quality audits can be conducted in two manners, either internally by a company or externally by a third party. For today's agenda, we'll be reviewing the 5 phases of conducting a quality audit. Although there are many ways to conduct a quality audit, today we'll examine the key processes involved with conducting an internal quality audit. The goal of this presentation is to provide the understanding of how companies and auditors interact within the audit processes and examine the process that both company and auditor must adhere to in order to produce the output of an internal quality audit report. For today's presentation, I'll be leading us through a detailed review of the 5 phases that are completed during the internal quality audit. The phases include initiation, preparation, execution, reporting, and follow-ups. Lastly, I'll provide an overview of the key components that make up the quality audit report. Although I will not be going into detail, I've included an addendum to this presentation, a sample quality audit report. Please note that the information contained in this sample is based off fictitious information and is not a real company. It's for illustration purposes only. As mentioned previously, the first phase of the 5 phases is the initiation phase. During the initiation phase of an audit, a lead auditor is appointed. This individual is charged with the task of planning the audit process, and in so doing, will create the internal audit plan. To complete the internal audit plan, the lead auditor will need to determine the feasibility of the audit, while also determining the exact schedule for the audit to take place. An important consideration for the lead auditor may be determining intervals for the audit. In other words, is this a one-time audit, or will the audit need to be conducted on a more consistent basis, like quarterly or semi-annually? The next step in the 5 steps is the preparation phase. Once a lead auditor has completed the audit, it must be approved by management, the first step in the preparation phase. The next steps are to define the audit objectives, criteria, and scope. These 3 define what is needed to be accomplished in the audit. In addition to that, date and time of the audit need to be completed, location where the audit will be completed, and the name of the auditor and auditee. When needed, the lead auditor will appoint additional auditors to assist with the audit process. This is no small task, as additional auditor selection is based off competency and training of the additional auditors. Do they have the knowledge of ISO standards? Do they have internal quality audit certifications? A fun fact is that it is suggested that an internal auditor should hold a secondary school certificate or higher. Once the audit is in place, the lead auditor will then need to prepare working documents for the audit. To do so, the auditor will need to study the processes, policies, guidelines, and records that will be audited. This will empower the auditor to create a toolkit of documents, which include an auditor checklist, clipboard and pen, and audit report forms. The next step is execution, conducting an open meeting, on-site audit. The first step in the execution phase is that the lead auditor will conduct open meeting with the auditees. This is geared towards obtaining agreement by all parties of the audit itinerary, introducing the audit team, and methods and procedures of the audit. It is important that during the meeting that the auditor makes a proper introduction, develops rapport, asks opening questions, avoids arguments, checks facts and takes notes, and remains objective and acknowledge that any oddities presented by the auditees. Examining records is another key piece of this process. This is an evidence-based process that could net either a negative or positive audit feedback. It's important that the auditor and auditee understand that these findings are not finger-pointing statements, but instead are detailed observations based on evidence documented in the audit results. The next step is reporting. Once the on-site audit process has been completed, the lead auditor will identify any non-conformance issues with the actual audit team. These issues will then be documented in a non-conformance report. Once the report has been compiled, the lead auditor will summarize and consolidate findings and initiate a closing meeting with the auditee. During the closing meeting, the auditor will discuss core results as outlined in the audit report, resolve any errors or misunderstandings, and agree upon possible action plans to address the negative findings. The last step of the 5 phases is the follow-ups. It's important to note that corrective actions should be undertaken by auditee and within an agreed time frame, and that the auditor should reevaluate all action items, also within an agreed time frame. The quality audit report is comprised of a number of different categories: the executive summary, objectives, scope, criteria, assessments, conclusions, and recommendations. In conclusion, it is worthy to note that the goal of conducting an internal and external audit is fact-finding and not fault-finding. The findings of the audit can be used to help companies achieve higher degrees of competitiveness, increase profits, and internal recognition for obtaining ISO standards. And the key for any company who receives negative audit feedback is to drill down on the corrective actions recommended by the auditor and do so in a timely manner. Doing so turns negative feedback into continuous improvement opportunity. Here are my references that I used to compile my report. And as mentioned earlier, I've included samples of the executive summary, objectives, scope, criteria, assessment, and conclusion, and as well as recommendations. This is my video. Thanks for taking time to view. Have a great day.